Maybe.
Yeah, I always take some.
All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. I am here with Carleen. Thank you so much for joining us today as Carleen walks us through making the most of your interview. We're going to focus specifically on the questions to ask interviewers, the importance of asking questions, and why interviewing is a two-way street. And you should feel confident in making the most of your time with your interviewer to get your questions answered. Carleen, thank you so much for joining today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about ways that you can be really interactive during an interview. I know that a lot of people have anxiety, kind of going into an interview. Oh man, like how am I going to describe my background? Am I going to cover everything that the interview is really looking for? But also, this is really your opportunity to learn more about the company and also really get an understanding of you might not immediately get an understanding of what the culture is on a regular basis, but I think the recruiter and interviewing other people on the team might give you a sneak peek on a little bit of what the vibe is, what the culture, the personalities within the company may be. But yeah, so we'll cover questions about what the tasks may be, about the culture, and future directions and things like that.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
and
let's get into
also well, great. And all of these questions are also available as a resource within the collaboratory as well, along with many other great documents that you can use, as well as other videos that we've recorded in the past. But yeah, well, like as I mentioned, interviews are a two-way street. It gives you the opportunity to learn more about the company, but also just as importantly, show your initiative. If you have an interview and you don't really have any questions at the end, it kind of feels like maybe you're not really interested in the role. I haven't really thought about it. Some people surprisingly don't even seem to really know much about the company itself. So asking questions really shows that you're curious, but also that you understand components of the roles that you're interviewing for. And also, it's a great opportunity to confirm the company's suitability for both your career goals and your values. Or are the things that the company is trying to establish or accomplish, do those align with the things that you find really important in life, whether it's, helping people or, working on a really interesting technology. Those are really important things to assess. And of course, at the very beginning of an interview, some of the things that you might be really worried about is, how well does this job actually match the job description? Am I going to be able to use the techniques that I really love doing? Am I going to be able to work with the teams that I'm really passionate about collaborating with? So some of those questions might be, what are the specific skills or techniques that would add to this team in this new role that aren't currently present among existing members? Is this new role that they're making, does it even make sense? Are they setting you up for success? Or, is there going to be kind of conflict over the distribution of duties or whether or not the work that you're doing is going to be satisfying for you? What are the metrics used to evaluate performance in this role? If this position is brand new, oftentimes a company may say, oh, yeah, there's so much potential here. You can basically build this role from the ground up. And under certain circumstances, that can be very true, and it can be really rewarding and, allow you to really work on innovation and curiosity. But on the other hand, they might end up using really unfair metrics for determining your ability to accomplish this role. So again, whether or not they're really setting you up for success. And also, do they have a general idea of what the next 6 to 12 months even might look like, right? Are you in an early growth phase for the company, or have they really established a lot of their protocols and their R&D, and so the next 6 to 12 months are more about scaling up, giving you an idea of whether or not, hey, in the next 12 months, do I have the opportunity to lead a team? Or, is my work as an individual contributor really going deep on, a specific type of product or optimizing some type of process? And just as importantly as the role itself, how much room is there to grow and, accomplish the things in your career that, are either within this company or match your goals for, the next 10, 20 years, right? Do you really enjoy being an individual contributor and being the boots on the ground? Or, maybe one day you want to get an MBA or be involved in, strategy and things like that. And you'd be surprised, the lengths to which people can really matriculate through an organization. I spoke to someone recently who, came in with an associate's degree working as a technician, and over, I can't remember if it was 10 or 15 years, became a director of R&D, without an advanced degree, but really just having a really strong idea of what the company needed and a really strong idea of what other team members needed. And so, how will my career development benefit the company? You don't want to end up in an organization where, oh, we really just needed someone to be a cog in the wheel long term. People don't really like doing this experiment, or, it's really boring. So, once you're in the role, we really want you there for basically the rest of your career. Are there opportunities to go to professional conferences or events? I would say, especially for people who might be, in a scientist role, one of the funnest things about doing R&D, especially as a student or a postdoc, are going to those conferences and getting to meet people. Or if you're a real, have a really collaborative mindset, really interested in sales, really interested in business development, being able to network and go to events can be really important for, being able to develop those skills. And what would my career trajectory be within this company? Say you're coming in, kind of as a basic scientist, or associate level as within sales, but it is really important to you to one day be able to mentor other people. Or on the other side, some people really like to be really focused on their work and innovation and things like that. So it's really helpful to know, oh, in the next 2 years, am I going to be able to mentor people, or am I going to be able to continue being that really hands-on engineer doing the work that I love? Just as importantly, getting an idea of the company outlook and culture. Do they prioritize DEI? Do they care about accessibility and accommodations? Especially as time evolves, the things that you might need may change, the thing that your team members may change. Do you feel that who you are as a person is represented at different levels within the company? Just kind of not just sequestered at entry level positions, but are there people in leadership who look like you? And what are you most excited about in the near future? You're trying to grow your career, but is the company trying to grow as well? Are they looking to diversify their portfolios? Are they looking to, have a greater impact in terms of the fields? And, are they actually in the position to be acquired? Which, for some organizations can be really exciting. More resources, more impact going on a national or international level. But for some people, they really do love that small organization feel. And if they're in the process of being acquired, and that is within the company's, near future, that's a really important thing for you to know as well. And also, what changes have you seen starting, at this company? Has there been a lot of restructuring that, that may or may not be something that you would be concerned about? Or, maybe there's been a lot of restructuring because all of these scientists or, sales associates at a certain level have now been promoted to higher levels, and now they're looking to fill those more junior positions. And you're really able to see yourself as a person who, oh, my supervisor was in my exact position 3 years ago, and that's what I can look forward to in the future. And also, future directions and closing questions. It can be really helpful to get a general understanding of what the job interview process is like. Is there going to be, maybe two more interviews with a few people on the team, or are you going to have to give a 15 to 30-minute presentation that you'll need to prepare? Is there some type of skills assessment? Getting an idea of both, the technical aspects, the social aspects, how much time you'll need over the next few weeks to prepare for this interview, and are you going to be able to meet the entire team you're working with? How proactive do you have to be in order to be able to, have those conversations with people that you would work with on a regular basis? And a really great sign within an organization is whether or not you have that flexibility to say, hey, I've met a lot of people in leadership, but I would love to meet, some of the more junior folks on this team, and get an idea of who I would be able to mentor, or what the long-term trajectory of a team actually looks like. Another really great question that I don't think a lot of people ask is, why is this role open? Is this a backfill? Did someone leave recently, or is this a completely brand new role? And I think really great organizations can look at teams and assess, oh, everyone's really overwhelmed, but and there are X, Y, and Z things that aren't really people's cups of tea, and we've consolidated these tasks into a position that all of those things are really cohesive, and we know we'll find someone who really loves doing that kind of work, and they can take that kind of bandwidth off of other people's plates. And also give you an idea of people kind of hesitate when you ask why is this role open, and it turns out, hey, it's been kind of a revolving door over the past few months with this position. That is a really great thing to assess as well. What is the onboarding or training process like? Is there even an onboarding and training process like, or do they just kind of like throw you directly into the role? Depending where you are in your position and the type of work, maybe you're completely fine with that. Or maybe you're really looking for that kind of hands on mentorship. And also, maybe you do want to get some type of certification, along the way. And what do you think is unique about this career field? Are you joining a company that's in a really saturated market and it's going to be really difficult for that organization to really claim their stake and demonstrate the innovation of their technology or product? Or, is this company developing a really exciting brand new tool that may be proprietary? Or, is this position that I'm going into, does it give me or does it set me up for future positions that would really align with my personal values as well as my personal goals? But there are also some really unique questions, some unique bonus questions. I spent about 10 years in the lab, and I've worked in many different universities and many different labs, and I can't tell you how big of an impact a window has. The first lab that I worked in when I was in grad school was in a basement. And if you went in outside of 9 to 5, all the lights leading up to the lab were red. So it was very much, kind of like a Resident Evil kind of vibe. And that has a huge impact on your mental health. And, just the practical parts of what does it like to be in this lab. I also remember, whether or not being able to walk to a restaurant or a coffee shop can really affect your quality of life. If you're working somewhere that's kind of, in the middle of nowhere, are you really going to enjoy the day to day of working somewhere like that? And then also, if you have the necessary funds, resources, with the person that you're speaking to, are they, do they have the flexibility and do they work in an innovative enough team where people are able to really daydream about all sorts of really interesting projects? Are people in an environment where they're able to have that type of creative mindset, where they're constantly thinking of the next coolest or most interesting thing that they could be doing? And also, how does the schedule vary? Are there slow seasons versus fast seasons throughout the year, or maybe even within the week, or even within a day, right? Are you able to prioritize your time wherein, in the morning, you're able to do, real deep focus, and then in the afternoon, you're talking to clients and other coworkers and things like that. You know, some people really like consistency. Some people really do love that job where every single day is different and it's really unpredictable, and that's part of the fun of the job. But also, I think it's, a lot of people don't really realize that, this is an opportunity to have a really fun, interesting conversation. You get to meet someone new who aligns with your interests and goals. I don't think people realize, yeah, when you go to dinner or talk to family members, they might be vaguely interested in your work. But to be able to talk to someone who really appreciates how difficult that project was, how smart the ideas that you had to tackle a really interesting problem or concept, and someone who is really interested in the type of work that you're doing, that's a pretty rare opportunity to talk to someone brand new who's able to contextualize your work in that kind of way. And that carries over to the idea of working on an exciting project that you're passionate about, and also pay tribute to your personal and professional growth. I feel like oftentimes we're working, and you're so overwhelmed with doing this next thing. And when you're looking for a new job, looking at your resume, that can be very stressful, but it's also a great opportunity to sit down and be like, wow, when I first started at this company, I didn't know how to do XYZ, and now I'm an expert. I've developed all of these new protocols. I've met all of these interesting people. Maybe, your personality has even changed. You've gone from being introverted to extroverted. And this really is an opportunity to appreciate all of the hard work that you've done and all of the people who've gotten you to that next stage in your career. But, that's everything that I had to cover, in the past 15 minutes. There are many, many more questions that you can assess in terms of things that you can ask interviewers. And this is a great resource within the Collaboratory that's got 50 questions to ask your interviewers. But yeah, well, thanks so much for this time to, review just a few things that you can consider during an interview. But yeah, if there are any questions or if Allison has any ideas that she can also share for the group, happy to stop there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carleen. That was fantastic. That was really, that was just a lot of great information and a lot of really good frameworks for when you go into an interview. We did have a couple questions come in. One of them is a really interesting one. If you were in if you were in like a panel interview, or maybe not a panel interview, but if you were in a situation where you're sort of interviewing with different people back to back, is it appropriate to recycle your questions? Maybe you've asked one interviewer, a certain question. Is it okay to sort of run through the same sort of questions through multiple people?
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely diversify, the whole set of questions that you would ask other people, but I think it's really smart to ask a few questions consistently across the board. How drastically different or consistent are those answers? If someone says this is a really collaborative environment versus another person says it's, oh yeah, we're all really individual contributors, trying to read between the lines and getting an idea not only if people have drastically different experiences, but if they have drastically different expectations of each other. And, if you feel kind of uncomfortable about that, you can say, hey, I asked X, Y, and Z fellow coworker about this, and I'd love to see your perspective on it, especially if they're in different roles and different levels of mentorship and seniority within an organization.
I really like that. Just sort of calling it out already that I've asked this before, but I'm still interested in your opinion. I think that's a really good way to go about doing it. Our other question was, what happens when you leave the interview and then you come up with a great question? Is it too late to follow up via email? Should you just hold your questions and hope you get another shot to ask?
Yeah, I think, having follow-up questions really shows, I was paying attention during this interview. I was thinking deeply about this interview. I think, literally walking away from an interview and having all those ideas and answers rumbling around in your head, I think can really trigger some creativity in terms of you assessing what this position is like and also what you can bring to the board, right? You might be having an interview and like, man, I didn't talk about that project that I think really assesses some of the things that they talked about. So asking a question after the fact via an email or maybe even if you reach out and you're like, hey, do you mind having a follow-up conversation over the phone, is a great way to do some fact finding, but also maybe squeeze in a little bit more of your resume that maybe you didn't get in the first place.
That's awesome. Well, those were all of our questions. And I think you provided such good information. And like you said, we have that resource available. So thank you so much, as always, for joining us, Carleen. It's always such a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. If you are not already a member, please feel free to join us in our free Slack community for biotech job seekers. There's so many good resources. You can hang out with me and Carleen in there. And then if you're looking for something a little bit more and you need a little bit more guidance in your job search, we do have our accelerator programs that you can check out at thecollaboratory.com. So that's it for us today. Carleen, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and I hope to see you all in the collaboratory.
Bye.